Okay, next topic right here. Before, in the previous video, we talked about control structures, and we did some tasks using simple if and else statements as well as the length method. We're going to move on to using control structures in for loops. So for loops, they use repetition or iteration. This is a step or sequence of steps that are repeated until some condition is satisfied. So sometimes we want to repeat a bit of code many times, and it's easier to use loops for this. So we use a loop to repeat a bit of code many, many times. So if we wanted to output the same statement 3 times, there are 2 ways that we can do this. We can do this the wall punching way. That's method 1, print hello world, print hello world, print hello world, right? Accomplishes that 3 times. This is pretty tedious and annoying, and I like to be lazy when I'm programming, so I'd rather use a for loop. So right here, again, we have our for loop, we have our variable in range, and then so this is our start and stop. So for I in range, start at 0, go in 3, print hello world. So I can run that. Okay, it does the same thing. As well as I don't actually need the start. I can actually make this, by default it's going to start at 0. So I can actually just put the end. So if I do this right here, 0, 0, it does the exact same thing. Okay. So I don't need the 0, but for the purpose of the example, I'll leave that in there. So if I wanted to, both of these methods work properly, they both output the same statement 3 times, but the for loop is a lot easier and it's a lot more lazy. We know how many times we want to do it, so we're going to use a for loop. If we didn't know how many times we wanted to print hello world, we would use a while loop, right? So remember, we use a for loop if the number of iterations is known. So if we know the number of times we want to repeat that bit of code, we're going to use the for loop. The range function is useful here. It enables us to use a start value and an end value. Like I mentioned in the example, I don't have to put the start if I wanted to start at 0. It will always default to 0. Okay. So again, this is range, start, stop. So this is the start, and then this is the stop value. So once it gets to the third, once x is equal to 3, it'll stop the loop. So pay attention to the syntax. Remember the amount of compiling issues that you had with the colon and the if else statement. Note that the for loop uses 1, 2. Pause here and write in your notes how many times you think this hello world will output below. Okay. If your answer is 1, 2, 3, 4 times, you would be correct. And the reason why is it runs 0, doesn't print 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is equal to 5, so it's going to stop, and so it's not going to run it anymore. Okay, so every time a loop is made, we call this an iteration. There were 4 iterations in the command above. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Once it's equal to 5, it stops. Right? Up here, 0, 1, 2, 0, 1, 2. Once it was equal to 3, it didn't run. Okay? So try entering the following into your Python interpreter. I'm not going to run this into mine because it's going to drop my screen really far, and I don't want to do that. So print this right here for x in range 5000. See what the values are and what is the end value. Okay. The end value should be 4000. Let's look at the following examples together. So we have our example for x in range 10, 0, 10. Quickly think about what this value is, what we call that, and what this value is. This is the start and this is the stop value. Print hello world. Okay, so it's going to print hello world 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 times. So this says how many iterations? 10. Okay, example 2, for x in range 0, 10, print hello world, print I love Python. Okay, and it's going to do that 10 times as well. For x in range 0, 10, print hello world, print I love Python, and then print I need sleep. How many times is it going to print this line of code? What is going to be the output? If you guessed, it's going to run the for loop first, and then at the end, I need sleep. Zzz, right? So it's only going to print this one time because it's out of the loop. So when learning looping, it's useful to count the number of iterations, so how many times it's going to loop. So as this for loop iterates, the value variable x increments by 1. So remember, increment means to go up. Right? So x goes up by 1 every time the loop goes through. We can simply output the value of x for each iteration as well. So if like I made for x in range 5, print this is iteration, and then I use the variable x. Right? So if I run this, at the end of our for loop, the value of x will be 4. So each time it goes through the loop, x goes up by 1. So the first time through the loop, it has gone through the loop 0 times. So the value of x is 0. The second time through the loop, it has gone through 1 time. So the value of x is 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So sometimes we can put a loop inside another loop. This is called nested loops or nesting loops within loops. Think about the movie Inception. Okay, so in here, for x in range 1, 3, so start 1, end 3, print this is the outer loop statement, and then we're printing the value of x. And then I have a for loop within this for loop, and I've used the variable y instead of x. So for y in range, start value 1, end value 4, print this is the inner loop statement, and then I'm printing the value of y. So if we print this out, this is the outer loop statement, 1, inner loop, inner loop, inner loop, outer loop, inner loop, inner loop, inner loop. And the reason for this is this loop has to finish before it goes back over here. Okay, because this is within it. Everything within this loop has to complete before it goes back up to this condition. Right? So this loop right here runs 3 times, and then it goes back over here, and then it runs this 3 times. And then by that time, it is equal to 3, and it will no longer run. Okay? This is a little bit complicated, but the mechanism is the exact same. Everything within this for loop has to run before it goes through here. So that is why we have this running 3 times, and this only running, printing it twice. Okay. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to work on these 3 examples right here. So make 3 separate files. One called for loop example 1, for loop example 2, for loop example 3. Okay. Just print these out. Okay, so press pause, work on these 3 examples, and then we're going to move on for just for fun. Okay. So after you've done those 3, try this out for fun, see what prints out. So the iteration is 25, for x in range iterations. This print statement for y in range iterations. Note the negative step, right? So before we had our start. We had our start and stop right here. The step is the 3rd value. This is the value, what the for loop steps by. So like we went over that in previous lessons, right? This particular one is going down by -1, right? So it starts at 5, ends at 0, and it goes down by 1, right? This is called decrement, right? So goes down by 1 after each iteration. Okay. So I will show you what's going on here. So for loop example, we have our outer, inner, inner, outer, inner, inner with the values there. For loop example 2, we get this little pattern right here. And then our example 3, we get this value. So once you get to the iterations, try this out for fun. This should be your output. Okay. So our task for this lecture is to guess the secret number. So you're going to prompt or ask the user for their name. You're going to ask them to guess a number between 1 and 10. And you're going to give them 5 attempts to guess the correct answer. You're going to do 2 refinements for this. So after you get these 3 things there, you're going to improve your program by stopping the iterations if they guess correctly. Remember, this was the break statement. Okay. Improvement number 2, improve your program by giving them their total guess count. Okay, so you're going to have to count how many times that they guess. An example would be, well done, Jude. You guessed correctly. Unfortunately, it took you this number of guesses. Okay. Once you are finished this, you're going to hand this in on Canvas. And that is the end of this lesson.